Oh, what's going on, GameLeap? It's the Jizz, and in today's video, I'm going to take you through 10 of the craziest builds that are being abused right now in high elo. And when I say crazy, I am being legit. There are some super interesting setups here, but all of them actually have really good win rates. So let's find out what these are. Oh, and just before we do, I thought I'd let you know that just this week, we have uploaded over 10 Challenger tier videos on our website that are made by the best to give you all the tips and tricks you need to also become one of the best. So if you love League and you want courses, guides, VOD analyses, the GameLeap.com website has it all, linked in the description and comment section. So let's go. Now, coming in at number 10 is a build for Ezreal, which has really taken off recently, and this involves going Essence Reaver into Manamune and then Crown of the Shattered Queen as your mythic. Sounds pretty weird, right? Because why would you go an AP mythic item on Ezreal? Why not just Divine Sundra? Well, you already have a Sheen with Essence Reaver, and the ability Haste Reaver gives you is really nice. Now, Manamune is always going to be built because you need a tier, because casting your spells will cost a lot of mana, but the reason you're going Crown of the Shattered Queen is because at the moment, the 75% damage reduction in the passive, it is just really broken. It's very hard for anyone to kill you when you have the passive up, and because you can play at such long range on Ezreal, especially in the mid to late game when you actually do get your mythic, it's very hard to take him down. Also, the fact that you have AP in your kit makes it even more viable, and the HP you get from Crown of Shattered Queen is really nice as well, because you are a very squishy champion, so with the extra health, you just have a better chance of staying alive. So even though you might be sacrificing a bit of DPS here with this setup, what you are getting in return is a ton of survivability, which is really important. So in other words, because you'll be staying alive for longer during team fights, you will actually be dealing more damage just because you're not going to die right at the start. And if anyone has actually tried this build, let me know in the comments what you think of it. Now, coming in at number 9, we're going to head to the mid lane here and talk about the Rabadon's Death Cap Rush Cannon. And this is serious as well, I'm not just making this up. Now, Rocket Boat is your first item, you can still of course build this. I'm not saying this is the only build you have to go, but rushing a Death Cap gives you the most AP possible. And in the mid lane where enemy champions are very squishy and getting to a team fight should be easy because you're in the middle of the map, whether it's a Rift Herald or Dragon, by rushing a Death Cap, your ultimate will legit one-shot every single champion. I don't care if they're a tank or a bruiser, everyone will die just because of the Rabadon Spike as your first item. But one build that is perhaps a bit more red hot than Death Cap Rush Cannon is coming in at number 8, and this is for Gangplank in the top lane. So a bit like the Ezreal build, we're getting an Essence Reaver as our first item because of the Sheen, the crit, the ability haste, and the attack damage. These are really important stats, and then we're going to get a Prowler's Claw. Now, the reason we're going Prowler's Claw instead of Dustblade is the fact that we're getting armor penetration via the mythic passive, which synergizes with the armor penetration, which is innate in your barrels. This means that if enemy champions don't have armor, you will be one-shotting them. Even if they do, like if you're against a Riven, Darius, one of these bruisers with steel caps or some sort of Death Dance armor item, you can do a ton of damage. And then finishing this with the Collector, because again, we're stacking lethality here, the damage you deal is just beyond belief. The only problem with this is that you are very squishy. So really, the playstyle here is almost playing gameplay like an assassin, trying to catch enemy champions over walls and from brushes with your barrels, and in teamfights playing really as a backliner, killing the enemy champions that jump onto you first. Because if you act as a frontline champion, you are going to get blown up. And another backline champion is coming in at number 7, and this is Kog'Maw in the mid lane. So I know that Lethal Tempo ADC Kog'Maw is popping off at the moment, but this iteration of Kog is actually performing very well as well. So what we're going as Luden's Tempest as our mythic, followed by the new Archangels and then Zhonya's. So AP Kog'Maw has been revived. Now remember back in 11-18, Riot actually buffed the AP ratio in your E, so it went from 50% to 70%, which made AP Kog'Maw mid just more viable. Now the reason we go Luden's is because the magic penetration and the damage, but also the AoE, which works off all of your abilities, and then going the new Archangel Staff, so the tier item, because you can go in very quickly. The fact this is 400 gold cheaper, so 2600 gold in total, this is really nice and just accelerates the mid to late game for you. And as your third major item, getting Zhonya's Hourglass, because we don't really have that much survivability. It's very easy to die without this item, and it gives us just a little bit of hope if we do get jumped on. But coming in at number 6 is perhaps a better setup than going AP Kog'Maw in the mid lane, and this is AD Kled top. Now because of the 11-24 changes to Kled, where Skarl's HP is counting as base HP rather than bonus, so going Titanic Hydra and almost like an off-tank setup, it's nowhere near as effective. So at the moment, what high elo Kleds are doing is going Gore Drinker, Black Cleaver, and then Death's Dance. So it's a full-on bruiser setup here. Gore Drinker is for sure the best mythic item to go because it's giving you pretty much everything you want. Ability haste, HP, attack damage, and also the passive, which is going to allow you to dive into the enemy backline because in the mid to late game, you can get kited quite heavily. So having this sustain in your back pocket is really useful, and then following this up with Black Cleaver for the armor penetration and also the movement speed. This gives you the stickiness you need to actually stick to those enemy champions and prevent yourself from being kited, and then with Death Dance, because most of the time in the top lane, you're going to be going against AD champions. This just gives you the 1v1 potential you really need at the moment. Now, starting off the top 5, we're going to talk about Seraphine here, and this is not a support Seraphine setup, even though you probably could get away with it. I'm talking about playing Seraphine as an AP carry in the bot lane or in the mid lane, and this setup revolves around going going Leandri's Anguish as your mythic, and a bit like AB Cogmore, we're going to be taking Archangel Staff as our second major item because this has been buffed, so it's 400 gold cheaper, and because you want to spam your spells as much as possible, we really need the mana this is going to give. Also, the change to Archangels, if we think about it, because it's giving you ability haste now instead of AP, for a champion like Seraphine, when you pair this with Leandri's mythic passive and the ability haste, the quantity of spells you're going to be throwing out, this is actually just way more important than the quality or the damage these spells are going to do. And the reason this setup is coming in at number 5 is because I actually think it could be really viable, especially if you have a lot of damage on your team already. So even though you do have AP in your kit, really you're playing off the utility your kit provides rather than the actual damage it brings. But beating that Seraphine setup to number 4 on the countdown, this particular build involves Senna. Now whether you play Senna as an AD carry or a support, I want you guys to go Krakensire and then Wit's End. Now Wit's End, despite being nerfed at the end of Season 11, is still being built by a lot of the best AD carries in the game. So if we think of Vayne, Ashe, Cogmore, all of these on-hit champions are still abusing it, and if we think of Senna, who has on-hit in our kit as well, the Wit's End passive comes in really handy. Also the attack damage, the attack speed, and then the magic resistance, these are all really useful as well, and it just makes you tankier, because a bit like Ezreal and the other champions on this list like Cogmore, going Zhonya's, you would be so killable without this resistance. And at the moment in higher reloads, these two items actually have one of the highest win rates of Senna compared to the usual Kraken and Ginsu's setup. So I would highly recommend giving this build a try in your games, especially if the enemy team has a lot of magic damage. But coming in at number 3, we're going to head back to the mid lane here and talk about one setup for Akali. So the build starts with Rocket Belt, no real surprise here, but instead of getting Demonic Embrace or Zhonya's, which are very popular, as your second major item, what we're going to be getting is the new Shadow Flame item. And for an AP assassin, Rocket Belt of course is going to be a core item because of the magic penetration and even the dash. It allows a champion like Akali, who's very mobile, to gap close for free so she can use all of her abilities on that target. And the reason Shadow Flame has become a really popular second major item is not just because the magic penetration and the 100 AP it gives you. The HP is really useful as well. And Akali is one of these champions who really values the HP because it's not like you need all the damage in the world to one-shot champions. You have enough damage anyway in your kit, and most of the time as well, champions you're going to be playing against do have innate shields, so Shadow Flame will become even more viable. So if you're against a Yone, a River, and a Janna, these champions that are played quite a bit, and there are a ton of others of course, that have innate shields, this makes Akali with these two major items a super scary champ to play against. But beating that Akali setup to number 2 on this countdown is Annie. And most Annie players are still going Ludens or maybe Rocket Belt as a mythic. Well, one mythic item that's being built a heck of a lot at the moment in high elo is Leandri's Anguish, and then following this up with a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, it is actually having a lot more success. Now why on earth would this be? Well, if we think about it, Leandri's and Rylai's both work on Tibbers. So when you send the bear in there, he's going to apply Leandri's burn just from his AoE, and also the Rylai's slow from this burn as well. So for sure, you are missing a little bit of damage and one-shot potential because you don't have the magic penetration that Luden's Tempest was giving you. But if we think about it for a second, squishy champions who you do want to use your combo on, they're probably not going to have any resistance. So you will still be doing a heck of a lot of damage to them, and this also helps you against bruisers and champions with more HP, which is pretty common at the moment because of all the changes to the top lane items and even the AP items like Shadow Flame, for example, giving these champions HP. So the Leandri's burn comes in really clutch, and the mythic passive giving you ability haste, it just means that you're going to get more spells off and also have your ultimate up more often, so there's just more playmaking potential. But the most low-key broke and underrated unknown challenger build, guys, coming in at number 1. This is for Corki in the mid lane, and just hear me out here, just listen to this. So we're going to start the build by getting a Manamune, then following this with a Ravenous Hydra, and then finishing it with Luden's Tempest. Now this is quite similar to the Ezreal build in the sense that we're getting Manamune and we're getting our mythic item as our third major item. So why is this the case on Corki? Well, of course we need a tier because we're all about using our spells, and if we go in, we are pretty much useless. So Manamune as your first item is a must. Then following this with Ravenous Hydra. Pretty much all the stats are useful here, but the passive works on all of your abilities as well. And because you're all about area of effect damage, and because of Ravenous Hydra's cleave passive, which is going to deal damage to enemy champions nearby, it just enhances your AoE. And then finishing this with Luden's Tempest, same reason. It's going to enhance your AoE because it procs off all of your abilities, but really because of the magic penetration and the AP. Because you have AP ratios and magic damage throughout your kit, it deals a stupid amount of damage. But this does mean that if you do play Corki, it's more about your abilities rather than actually auto-attacking if you were to go with Shield Bow, for example. But here's the thing, against good players, they're not going to allow you to just auto-attack them for free when you're going Shield Bow. And more often than not, because Corki is pretty close range, it's very risky to actually get your head in there. So staying at range with this setup and becoming like an artillery mage, like a Xerath, is actually just the better playstyle, and make sure you pair this with sorcery shoes, of course, and your damage output will be insane. So those are the 10 unknown challenger builds, guys, for 1124. Let me know in the comments if you have tried any of these out. Some of these sound super interesting to play, and if you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like down below, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our pre-season daily content. And until tomorrow's daily preseason video, this has been the Jizz.